Hi, the two Lauras, and welcome to this podcast. I'm really excited to record this podcast episode because it is a novelty for me. I haven't recorded before with two guests, so I'm very excited about this. How are you?
We're good, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us on.
Yeah, exciting. Awesome. Okay, well, let's start this podcast episode by getting to know you a little bit better. How would you describe yourself in a few words?
So we are the two Lauras. We are both known now as the two Lauras, and we work with thousands of freelance social media marketers from around the world, and essentially we help them to build their own businesses, so like a profitable, good, structured business.
Yeah, and we do that so we have a membership that's for freelance social media managers, and we have a course called Social Proof, where we help people to get better at social media marketing. We've got a free Facebook group as well, which is the Social Media Managers Hub, and we try to help people as much as we can in there as well.
And we're also we're still freelancers ourselves, so we've also I've got a good couple of clients still that I manage social and ads for, so we've still got our finger in the pie, so to speak.
That's great. That's really great. I'm sure you have a lot of awesome and helpful resources for social media managers out there. I was curious, how did you start your career? Have you always worked in social media, or was it something that happened later in your life? And if you have always worked as a freelance social media manager, or if you worked in-house for a brand, or what was your path?
So I've always worked in sales and marketing. I've never worked in-house as a social media manager, but I've always worked in sales and marketing. And I kind of, in all honesty, I fell into it because, I fell into social media marketing, although I had the marketing background. And this happened quite a long time ago. So when my son was born, he was born disabled. And when you're a new mum, it's quite lonely anyway. But when you're a new mum with a disabled child, it's even more lonely. So I use social media to make connections and find other people who are having those same problems. And as I was using it for that, I was seeing how useful it was for business. And this is he's 13 now, so this is quite a long time ago. And so that's how I kind of got into it then. And I started helping people that I knew to use social to market their businesses. And I kind of grew from there. I think, Laura, you're a bit similar, aren't you?
Yeah, I'd got more of a varied background, but I then went self-employed about, I think it was 11 or 12 years ago with a previous business. And I loved the social media marketing. It was still very early days then, not quite as complex as it is now. It was pre-Instagram. But I absolutely loved the social media marketing side of that, of having that business. And it would kind of irritate me when I generated work because I didn't want to do the job anymore. I just wanted to do the marketing. And so it was someone who said to me, well, why don't you just come and help me with my social media marketing and move over into that kind of social media management perspective. So it kind of happened a little bit by accident. And then, so I've been freelance or doing freelance social media marketing for I think about 6 or 7 years now.
That is quite the story, yeah. I loved how you put the emphasis on the connector part, right? Because social media, at the end of the day, this is what it's meant for, right? To connect people from all over the world. But how did you guys meet? How did you come up with this idea of founding a community for freelance social media managers?
I'll let you answer that one, Laura.
It was by accident, really, that Laura and I we were essentially competitors. Laura was on my radar. I knew who she was. She was offering very similar services to me. Obviously, we had the same name. So I knew that she was about. And we then ended up doing a couple of courses where we were both on those courses. So again, our names just, I suppose, kept kind of cropping up. Anyway, then we got into conversation one day and it turned out that we were both having a similar situation of people coming and asking, other social media managers coming and asking us questions like, how did you get your client? Where did you start? Could you give me some help? And when we realized that this was happening to both of us, we kind of thought, well, maybe there's a need here for more help. There's lots of people out there who train in social media marketing and advise people on how to, create better Instagram reels, for example. But there's not actually many people who help social media marketers have a good business. And we're quite unique, I think, social media marketers, in that we are people who are not only having to market your own business and build your own brand, you're also having to do that for somebody else as well. And you've got that responsibility of doing someone else's marketing. So I think we're quite a rare breed. We were like, well, we need to find a way that we can help them. So we created, which was our first product. And initially it was meant to be this tiny little, I think, PDF, but we created what is now called the Social Media Managers Toolkit, and we've sold well over 1,000 of those now. And it was just everything that a freelancer needed to be able to start their business, but also find clients, win clients, keep clients, get rid of clients, get more money from clients. So we kind of put all of what was in our head and our experience into this toolkit, and thought kind of that would be it. But it just kind of grew. People needed more ongoing support and help, and they wanted that kind of safe space to be able to come and talk about their clients or talk about what was going wrong on Twitter that day. And so hence why we then moved into having a membership, and our kind of free community has grown. I think there's about 7,000 freelancers in that free group now. So it was all a bit organic. We had no big business plan.
No, and we'd only met each other in real life once before we
really
started our business together. Yeah.
So we live on the different, obviously the UK isn't huge, but I live in the middle. Laura lives right down on the south coast. So we've still, obviously because of COVID, we've still probably only been in the same room probably 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
Right. And we're, nearly 3 years into business. So it's quite unique.
But it seems like it all came really naturally, right? It came to...
Yeah, we're lucky because we are quite similar, aren't we? We don't just share a name. We have lots and lots of similarities, which obviously is good most of the time. Sometimes not so good. But I think that definitely helps us, being that we don't work together like in the same room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And speaking of work, I was curious, what does a day in your work life look like? Because I usually talk to social media managers who are in-house for a brand. How do you manage freelancing and also advising other social media managers? How do you combine those?
Not easily.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that life is busy. And I wouldn't say that any 2 days of ours are the same. We're very, our days change quite a lot. We can try to be as structured as possible in terms of getting the work done, not faffing, not losing hours scrolling on TikTok, all these kind of danger zones that you have, I suppose, as a social media marketer. But like, I'm quite strict in terms of when I do my client work, make sure the client work is done, hope nothing happens that throws that completely out and I have to, work long nights. But obviously, as we know, social media often does that to us. But yeah, I wouldn't say we've got a structure really. Would you, Laura?
No, I think the only thing that we do every week is that we try not to work on Fridays. But if we do work on Fridays, we're very strict that we only work on our business, on things that we want to do. Like, we wouldn't do all of the horrible admin jobs on a Friday that we don't want to do. We don't work on client accounts really on Fridays if we can help it. So that day is either for us to have off or for us to do the parts of our business that we enjoy. That's really our only sticking point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there is always a danger, and we certainly see this within our community, that because as freelancers we are being paid by clients, we end up prioritizing all of our client work, and then we get to the end of the week and we realize that we've you know, the schedule is empty for our own content. We haven't created any content. We don't know what we're marketing about ourselves. And then it's a slippery slope that you end up not marketing yourself, and weeks go by, and then things happen. You know, you do lose clients. You know, COVID was a great example of that, really. And well, I suppose it wasn't great, but lots of people unfortunately lost their client base. And those who had been consistently marketing their own business seemed to bounce back a bit quicker than the people who hadn't and had obviously let it go by the wayside. So we always try ourselves, and we always kind of preach to others that you just have to make sure you've got that dedicated time in your diary each week to work on your own business. And, you know, like Laura said, we tend to try and do that on Fridays. But before Laura and I worked together, I used to try and do it every day, like a little bit every day, whereas Laura always used to just take one day to focus on her business. So whatever works for you. But I think the most important thing is that you put that time in your diary and you stick to it, because it's a slippery slope if you start to neglect your own business, I think.
Right. And it's really important to set boundaries, especially in such a busy industry such as social media. So I definitely can relate to that.
Yeah.
I was curious, from your experience, what advice would you give to a social media manager who maybe lacks inspiration for their content strategies or campaigns? I feel like this is one of the main struggles of social media managers nowadays. How do you keep coming up with that unique content, that engaging content that pops up?
I think this comes down to your audience, doesn't it? You really need to know your audience so well. And we're really lucky because we know our audience really well, because we get to know our members really well. So we literally know our customers, but also we've kind of been in our customers' shoes. So for us, that's how we get to know our audience really well. But we really pay attention and we really listen to what they're saying, what complaints they're having, what they're moaning about in the Facebook group, what issues they're facing, what they're saying on our content will then, you know, spark ideas for more content. And it's those frustrations, I think, that we kind of pick out, don't we, to give us content ideas a lot. What would you add, Laura?
I would say as well that, you know, I think a downside of social media marketing is that we all have to sit and constantly be thinking, I need to create new things. But actually, like, a lot of our content, we repurpose, we use on different platforms, we write blogs and then repurpose them, or we write content for social and then we repurpose them into blogs. Like, we send emails every day and we repurpose those, or we just look back at all of our previous content and think, right, what has worked? Why do we think it's worked? What do we want to say now? What can we use from that learning to create new, or just repost it differently to try and get better results? So I think that repurposing of old content is often forgotten. And actually, if we all had a bit more of a repurposing strategy, it would make our lives a little bit easier.
Right, yeah, definitely agree. There's always so much focus, isn't there, on new ideas and new content. And there shouldn't be, like, there are no new ideas. Everything's already been said by somebody. Exactly. So even if you are coming up with your own content, it's probably because you've been inspired by someone else.
You cannot reinvent the wheel over and over again. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I was curious if you can tell us some tips on how to increase brand awareness on social media, because at the end of the day, this is what we all want to do, right? To increase brand awareness.
So I think, again, this comes down to your audience. Know your audience really, really well, and then create content that really speaks to those people. Because if you're trying to create content that speaks to everybody, that doesn't make anyone aware of you. That, you know, people just skim by that stuff. So make sure that you know who you're talking to and you're speaking to those people and you're really calling out those people, would be my first point.
Yeah, I would say something to really focus on to increase that initial brand awareness is creating good shareable content, which is a skill in itself. It's not easy, and we kind of recognize that. But the more you can understand your audience and the more you pay attention and use social listening, find out what your audience does share, what triggers them to press that share button, and then see if you can recreate that and get more eyeballs on your content. If you can master that, then then you're laughing. Really, it's a hard skill, but it's a skill well worth trying to plug away at.
Yeah, definitely. And also like collaborations and stuff work really well for brand awareness. If you can collaborate with people and get in front of other people's audiences, then I think that's like gold. If somebody else has got your perfect audience, if you can get yourself in front of them, then that's always going to be a winner.
Yeah. I always feel like people forget about the social in social media, and they always try to focus just on the content, but at the end of the day, you're creating content for your audience, right? So it has limitless powers if you listen to your audience, definitely. Now, because you mentioned earlier about the skills you need as a social media manager, I was curious, what top skills do you think a freelance social media manager needs? Because I assume they are a bit different from a social media manager who works in-house for a brand.
Well, I think obviously it goes without saying that some social media marketing skill is obviously useful. But aside from that, I think a good skill is resilience. It's not easy out here, and sometimes you can be like sky high, everything's great, you've got clients, you've got money coming in, you enjoy your job, but then the next day you can lose clients, or you can find it really, really difficult to find clients. And so you've got to have that kind of thick skin, and understand that it's never quick. If you work and have any kind of social media knowledge, that social media is not quick win. It's, you've got to be in it for the long game. And I think that's really key as well when you're trying to be freelance. You need to understand that, unfortunately, growing a business doesn't happen overnight, regardless of what all the Instagram and LinkedIn gurus will tell us. And it does take time, and it takes hard work. And there are lots of ups and downs in the process.
I would add as well one that you said earlier, which is like, you need to be able to manage your boundaries. You need to be able to have the confidence to say no to a client. If they're WhatsApping you on a Sunday night to moan about a typo in a post that they've written and ask for it to be changed, you need to like ignore the WhatsApp. You need to have that boundary, and you need to set those expectations at the beginning so that the client knows what's acceptable in terms of like communication. They know when they can contact you, how they can contact you, when you're going to work, and you're not going to drop everything just because they want a post to go out that they haven't told you about in advance. And I think a lot of people, when they're working as freelance social media managers, that's when they start to get burnt out, because they don't have those boundaries, and the clients are constantly asking them to do things that they shouldn't be asking them to do anyway, because it's not probably within what they've been charged for. But it's just that they haven't set out those expectations, and then they don't have that confidence to manage those boundaries to say no.
Yeah. I think that there's a misconception, I think, in this industry from a freelancer perspective, that being a freelance social media manager is a really convenient job. And it's often kind of sold like that. Oh, be a freelance social media manager because you can do it when you work around your kids. You can bounce your toddler on your hip and also do whatever you've got. There's lots of this kind of narrative out there, but the reality is it doesn't work like that. And yes, we get to work from home. Yes, we get to work around our children to a degree, in terms of I'm at the school gate every day and I can drop my children and pick them up, but I'm often doing that whilst on my phone, whilst trying to edit a post I've got a typo in, or I'm working late into the evening because something's happening that I need to be aware of for a client or for our own business. So you have to be flexible, but you also have to be realistic. And that sometimes, you may be sat on a beach on holiday, also tweeting, if you can accept that, and it'll be a lot easier, but definitely being flexible is a must.
Yeah. This is exactly what we're trying to do with this podcast, showing the world that being a social media manager is not easy. You don't only need to scroll through social media platforms all day long. It requires a bunch of skills, and it's a tough job, and it's definitely not for everyone, but I'm sure it has a lot of rewards as well. So could you point on some of those? What brings you real joy when working in this industry?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good question. I love the fact of social media, that what you can achieve on social media. If you think about all of the really amazing campaigns that have raised loads of money and connected people and things like that, I think social media is amazing for stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of negativity around social media in terms of like mental health and you know, that you can be trolled and there's all this negativity and stuff. But I think if you're very clear about what it is that you want to see on social, and you mute and hide other things, then you can get rid of that and you can just have the really amazing side of social media, which I think there is a lot of that out there.
And I think, like, just touching on what you said about the connections you make, like if I think now of, you know, being a business owner now for, as I say, over 10 years, some of the people who are my biggest supporters I've never met. They are people who are in my DMs. They are people who I follow, they follow me. And I just think the world would be a poorer place if we didn't have that kind of, those connections that you can build. Like our business wouldn't exist.
No, we never would have met.
No, so there's a lot to be said for that, I think. And I think we often forget that it's about getting the next sale or it's about getting the next lead, but actually social media can really bring people together and those communities can be, created. And I think that's to be celebrated, really. And it's not all negative, it's not all trolls.
It definitely isn't. I mean, we wouldn't have had this conversation, right, if it weren't for social media. So
exactly.
Yeah, I also feel it's about the connections that you make. It's definitely a great community that is very open and friendly. You mentioned earlier social media campaigns, and I was curious if you can think of that social media campaign that you think it's your best work.
I don't think we like all of our work, but there's one, I suppose, consistent message as opposed to a set campaign that we've done, but we have a consistent message that we share all the time over social media, and it's one of our kind of core business values. And it's something that a lot of people now know about us, and I think it helps people to understand us better in that we have a campaign that talks about social media not being an admin job, because as freelancers we see this happen all the time, that you inquire with someone, you might put a proposal in and you might price up a job and they'll say, oh, you know what, we're just going to get the admin person to do that, with no qualifications, no knowledge. All they've got is an Instagram account, so that makes them an expert. And it's something we feel quite passionately about. It's something that our audience feels really, really passionate about, because they essentially lose out of work because the business owners out there don't understand what social media is. They think that they just need someone to put a few posts out and that will magically, change their business. And so there's a misconception that because they don't understand the job, they can get anybody to do that. Anyone who's got a Facebook profile can become a Facebook marketer, and obviously we all know that that's different and not the case. And actually it would be lovely if it was as simple as that, but it's not. We'd all be social media managers if it was that simple. So it's definitely a ongoing message rather than a finite campaign that we've done, but it's not an admin job is something that we harp on about a lot. Would you agree, Laura?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. It's definitely one of our, like you said, one of our core messages and our core values. And that's not to say that admin jobs are not great jobs, because, that work needs to be done. That's very important work. But it's just distinguishing between marketing and admin. And if a business treats their marketing as an admin job, they don't get results. And I think it's as simple as that. And just that message needs to get out to more people.
Definitely. It's a beautiful message. And I think I will pinpoint it in the description of this podcast episode. Now, I always like to ask this question when we're coming to the end of the session. If you could teach me only 3 things about social media marketing from your experience, what would you teach me? I feel like we kind of touched on that before, but if you could pick only 3.
Okay, should I go first?
Go on then.
Right, I would say the first thing would be human first content. So remembering that the person who is on the other side of the phone, who is reading your message, is actually a human being. They're not a robot and they're not an algorithm. So like creating your content and marketing your business to humans who are the ones who are going to buy your products potentially, and not creating content just for the algorithm. That this is big part of what we do, is big part of our course, is like the psychology of social media marketing, and actually creating content for people rather than creating content for the algorithm will always get you better results. Because yes, the algorithm is a problem, but if you're creating content for people, it's a much lower problem down the scale. It's, you know, becomes definitely a secondary problem. Do you agree, Laura?
Yeah, definitely. And that, I think that's probably would be our main one. If I was to think of some probably slightly smaller, maybe more specific things we'd certainly teach people, it would be about the need or the importance of a call to action. Like it's one of our biggest pet hates, isn't it? Like it's remarkable the amount of social media content out there that doesn't have a call to action. And as we know, as Laura says, you know, we're big on making content for a human. We need to tell a human what to do. We aren't robots and we're busy people. And if you don't tell us what to do in your content, we won't do it. It's as simple as that. We're kind of quite lazy people, aren't we, as humans?
Speak for yourself.
So definitely like teaching people that importance of a CTA and getting them to use it, and then obviously measure the success of that, and using that that data to help you move forward with your content strategy would be another one.
Yeah, definitely. I would also add as well that it's really important to actually sell on social media. Like, yes, social media is all about connecting and it's about meeting people and talking and being social and what have you, and entertaining people and what have you. But if you've got a business and you want people to buy your products or your services, you actually need to tell people how to do that. You need to sell. And if you don't sell on social media, then you're just using it for a hobby, really. So I think that would definitely be something we would teach people, wouldn't it? The importance of selling on social and how to actually go ahead and do it.
Yeah, totally.
That's excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing those. And now, can you tell us what are your future plans, if you have some ongoing projects, or where can people find you and follow you?
So we're about to reopen our membership. The doors to our membership will be opening really soon. So that's the Inner Hub, which is for freelance social media managers. And we've always got new things coming up, haven't we, Laura? We're always like thinking of new ideas and what have you. So probably the best way to find out what we're up to is to come and find us on Instagram. We're on there as @the2Lauras, or come and join our free Facebook group, which is the Social Media Managers Hub. And yeah, come and chat, ask us what we're up to. We're an open book. We'll always tell you what's going on. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure meeting you.
And thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.